Hey guys, we're going to start a lesson today called correlation and causation. If you are a future lawyer or anything like that, this is something you may want to pay attention to. First, let's define correlation and causation. There are a couple of different types of correlation. The first is going to be positive correlation. This means when X increases, Y also increases. So we get something that looks like this, right? So like when X increases, Y increases. When X increases, Y increases. It's a positive slope, okay? Positive correlation means a positive slope. Another way we could have that is when X decreases, Y also decreases. So when I start here, my X decreases and my Y decreases. I get more dots on this line, okay? If I pick any point, my X decreases, my Y also decreases. That's still a positive correlation. Okay, things that are positively correlated would be something like number of hours studied, and your grades that go along with that. Right, number of hours studied and grades are positively correlated. Okay, what about your age and your height? Your age and your height are positively correlated. So, like the older you get, the taller you get up until a certain point. But the older you get, the taller you get. Okay. We can also have negative correlation, which is when X decreases and Y increases. Okay. When X decreases, Y increases. Or when X increases, Y decreases. Both directions. When X increases, Y decreases. X increase, Y decrease, X increase. Okay. Or when X decreases, Y increases. Okay. So negative correlation is like a negative slope. Some things that happen that are negative correlations is like distance driven and the amount of gas you have in your gas tank, right? You get the concept, even though none of y'all are driving. The further you go, the less gas you have. Or the longer your phone is on time on phone, the lower the battery. Same idea. The longer you have on your phone, the lower the battery will be. Unless you have some miracle battery that charges while it's watching. I don't know. But yeah, so that's a couple of things. Or another one, maybe like the temperature outside and the number of people wearing jackets, right? Temperature and jackets worn, right? The higher the temperature, the fewer the jackets, right? The hotter it is outside, the fewer the number of people wear jackets. So as the temperature rises, the number of people wearing jackets decreases. Okay. And then we have things that are something called no correlation. No correlation is there's no relationship. It doesn't have, there's no relationship whatsoever, right? No relationship. So it doesn't follow a trend line or it doesn't follow a slope or anything. So it's just a bunch of random points. It's like, flies in a kitchen or something like that. It's just random. So, like a number of pets and number of books read or something. I don't know, something totally not correlated. Okay. So just because you have a ton of pets doesn't mean you read a lot of books, and just because you have no pets doesn't mean you read a lot of books. What about test scores and shoe size? Right, shoe size. Those are not correlated either. It doesn't matter what your shoe size is for your test score. It doesn't mean the higher the larger the shoe size, the higher the score. Okay. My favorite one, you can go ahead. I'll Google this. It's something that looks like it's correlated. All right, it's actually very much correlated. Look up. I'll give you some time here. Look up shark attacks. Let's see, shark attacks and ice cream sales. Look at shark attacks and ice cream sales. These things are definitely correlated. Okay. But just because something is correlated doesn't mean one thing causes the other thing to happen. Okay. Just because that's correlated doesn't mean one thing causes another thing to happen. Because what happens later on with your age, you get older and maybe even get shorter. How many of you have grandparents that kind of start slumping over, right? Or maybe your dad says he isn't as tall as he used to be, or something like that. Okay. How many of y'all wear jackets no matter how hot it is outside? Okay. Just because one thing exists and because they're correlated doesn't mean they're caused. So shark attacks and ice cream is my favorite one. You can look at it on a chart that has December on this side all the way to January on this side. Okay. Or sorry, not December, January. January on this side, December on this side. And it shows two trend lines, right? It shows two lines of ice cream sales and shark attacks. So when ice cream sales in January, so like this will be ice cream. So like ice cream sales will be low in January, February. They'll start to increase in March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December. Okay. It'll do something like that. These will all be ice cream sales. And, it has a positive correlation and it has a negative correlation, right? It goes up and then it goes back down. And then shark attacks, let's do ice cream here with a solid dot. And then shark attacks are going to be an open dot. And shark attacks again in January, February, March, April, they start to increase. May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December. Now they follow the same trend line, right? They increase when ice cream sales increase, and they decrease when ice cream sales decrease. Does that mean that the more ice cream you eat, the more likely you are to get attacked by a shark? Okay, just because they're correlated to one another, does that mean one thing causes another thing? I don't think so. Or maybe sharks love rocky road, right? So the more rocky road that gets eaten, the more sharks go out there and start finding. Do you think you're going to open the door to Baskin Robbins one day and there's going to be a shark waiting for you to pick your, one of the 31 favorite flavors or something? I don't know, maybe. Okay. So just because these lines are directly correlating with each other, when one increases, the other one increases. When one decreases, the other one decreases. Do you think it's true that ice cream sales cause shark attacks? Or do shark attacks cause ice cream sales? Like, I heard there are 2 shark attacks on the beach last week. You got to live while you can live. Let's go have a bunch of ice cream. Is that what happens? Maybe. Okay. So just because something is correlated doesn't necessarily mean something is caused, right? Just because one action happens doesn't mean the other action has to happen. So these things that we follow here, this general sense of a positive increase, this positive slope here, or this negative slope here, these are called trend lines. Okay. So the trend line actual definition is going to be a line that's drawn near the points of a positive or negative correlation, right? So it's just kind of a general line that follows the positive or negative correlated points. Okay. So whenever we have positive correlation, yes, we have kind of a general line. That's a trend line that all this stuff follows, or a trend line with our negative correlation. You may have heard it in 5th grade called line of best fit, right? But whenever we have no correlation, do we have a trend line? Do we have a line that kind of shows the general consensus of all these points? No, there is no trend line. And also, this trend line helps predict data. It helps predict data. So, if I'm looking at my positive correlation, if I take my x all the way out to here, I can use this trend line to find a general idea of where my y values are going to be. Or if I continue with this one, I can find my general idea of where my y's will be. Okay. So do a little research. That's probably going to be our Google Classroom question today. Why are shark attacks and ice cream directly correlated with each other? They follow. It's the craziest thing. They follow the exact same pattern. Okay. On the next page, let's see here. On the next, where it says examples on your PDF, it says the graph below shows the number of people that go to the beach based on the average daily temperature. Using the graph about how many people would go to the beach if the average daily temperatures were 90 degrees. So it gives you a bunch of data, right? It gives you a bunch of data, and it says estimate how many people would show up if it were 90 degrees. Well, you can kind of generally see the data is, what is that, a positive or negative correlation? Kind of looks like this, and it goes from temperatures of 75 degrees all the way, 75 visitors all the way to 600 visitors, and then it's from 80 degrees all the way to 96 degrees. Obviously, they're not in Houston where it goes to 105 and 10 degrees. So around here, it's going to be 90 degrees. Okay, now is that going to follow this trend line, or do you think it's going to be up 90 degrees? No, 1,000 visitors, or 90 degrees? No, 0 visitors. No, we're going to find a general trend line, try to draw a straight line through that data. Then you're going to go up to with your 90, or on the where x is 90, you're going to go up until you hit the line, and then you're going to go across until you hit the line, and you're going to try to find out how many people would show up to the beach. Okay. All right. I'll give you a hint. It's not going to be I can tell you that much. But draw a general trend line. It's also not going to be D. It's going to be B or C. Try to draw a trend line as best as you can, a line of best fit, if you will, through that data and see where that line hits. Okay. All right. We also have the association versus causation. Association is another way of saying correlation. So you have a bit of information. It says, even though two quantities exhibit a correlation or association. So the first term is association. Just because things, the first thing in the first set of parentheses is association. So it says, even though two quantities can exhibit a correlation, association, this relationship does not necessarily mean that one thing causes the other to happen, or causation. Okay? Causation. Just because you're associated with someone doesn't cause you to do something, right? Just because you have friends that study, does that mean that you will also study? Just because you have friends that do bad things, does that mean you will also do bad things? Sometimes. That's why we have the term guilty by association, right? Just because you were with them, you were probably guilty. Not necessarily definitely guilty, but probably. Did you do that because of who you were hanging out with? Maybe. But causation is different. Causation means you definitely happened it definitely happened that way. So another example that it gives, and I'm about to run out of time here. Another example that it gives is very similar to the shark attacks. Boating accidents and ice cream. Are people totally obsessed with their ice cream so much so that they start having boating accidents? Are you trying to get that last lick on the strawberry ice cream, and then bam, you hit another boat? Let's see. Okay. The next video will show the practice problems. Just kind of generally go through here. Think about association versus causation. One thing causes one thing to happen. One thing is just following the same pattern. Y'all have a fantastic day.